So, every year I come on this channel, and for months and months, I do mock drafts for the NFL draft. I do a whole bunch of them, a whole slew of them. And sometimes I run through different scenarios, different situations, and so on and so forth. And inherently, what always comes along with that are all of the comments talking about how I'm an idiot, talking about there's no way, talking about how stupid I am, how I'm terrible at mock drafts, and everything like that. And let's understand something. That mock drafts are mocks of what could happen, but it can be impossible to be able to understand or anticipate every single potential variable. And especially when talking about mock drafts, there can be that one pick that comes out of nowhere that screws everything up. Screws everything up. So, you also can't anticipate sometimes guys just dropping because they drop because it's just the way the draft fell. Those are the things that are the unknown. And typically when it comes to mock drafts, a lot of these so-called experts, the nationally known people, the nationally trusted people, if they get 5, 6, or 7 of them right, they're thought of as being really smart and really knowledgeable. It's true. And honestly, with how hard it can be to do mock drafts, to be able to say you got 5, 6, or 7 picks right out of 32 really isn't a bad number. I know that's on almost 80% fail rate, but when you look at the mock draft process, it actually is a pretty good number. So, I thought it would be fun to come back to my final 2018 mock draft and see how I did. And again, I want to emphasize, a lot of the national and known experts that get praised and are respected will get like 5, 6, 7, around a really, really good year, 8 picks right. And so many of you talk about how dumb I was and how stupid I was and how idiotic I was. I have one question for you. Tell me how my ass tastes. Yeah, that's right. I look back at my 2018 mock draft, my last one, which was I've talked about for months. The last one is the only one that really matters, and all the other stuff is for a topic of conversation and analysis and playing out different scenarios and talking about prospects that are rising and falling. It's the last one that matters the most. And I have to say, I did a pretty damn good job for an idiot. I got the first 3 picks right. I had Baker Mayfield 1 to Cleveland, Saquon Barkley 2 to the Giants, and Sam Darnold 3 to the Jets. And you might say, well, that was kind of simple. Well, there were still a lot of people that had Sam Darnold going number 1. And the reality is I did this mock draft, actually typed it up and everything, on Wednesday morning, before the real vibe started to become Baker Mayfield going number 1. Like, I did this Wednesday morning. Which, when I did it Wednesday morning, it made more sense to me that the Browns would have traded back from 4 and the Bills would have traded up to 4 for Josh Allen. But based off of what happened, especially with the news that broke late on Wednesday about Josh Allen in previous tweets, it's not a surprise that that trade up by the Bills happened at number 7 instead. But even in that case, I was still right about the Bills wanting Josh Allen. There's no way I could have anticipated potentially Denzel Ward going forward to the Browns, but yeah, there kind of could have been, because when I had the Browns traded down, the only reason they weren't taking Denzel Ward is they had traded back too far. That was the corner that I thought they would have wanted, was Denzel. I don't know if I would have penciled him in at number 4, but he was the guy that, based off of me trying to anticipate trades up and moves, and, ultimately Green Bay was aggressive in this draft. They just went a different route to do so. If Denzel Ward would have been there for the Browns, I would have had them taking him. And you look at picks 5 and 6, they were just inverted. And honestly, I spent like 15 minutes between these 2 picks. I'm like, would the Broncos rather have Chubb or Nelson? And it was almost to the point where I was flipping a coin. And I went with Nelson and then Chubb. So be it. I had Roquan Smith going number 8, and the thought process was for the Bears, they might be trying to recoup their third-round pick, but there was also a very strong chance that I thought they would take him at number 8. I thought number 8 was the slot where Roquan Smith was going to go, and that's ultimately where he went. Granted, I had Miami trading up for him, but Chicago still took him at 8, so I still had the slot right. You look at other picks. I had Da'Ron Payne going 13, and technically had him going ahead of Vita Vea. And I'm crazy, I'm stupid. Technically, I was wrong. He did not go ahead of Vita Vea. Vita Vea went 12 and Da'Ron Payne went 13. So how much of a difference was there really? And I feel like in terms of first-round picks or calling a first-round pick, this was probably one of my best ones because I don't know if a lot of people had Da'Ron Payne going 13 to Washington. Maybe they did. Maybe I just didn't see that. But I did. And that's what mattered to me. I also find it funny that I had the Raiders taking Kolton Miller in round 1 after trading down. Ain't that some shit? And I had the Cardinals getting Josh Rosen. I did not have them trading up to do so, but I still had them taking Josh Rosen. I nailed Leighton Vander Esch at pick 19, and I also got Calvin Ridley to the Falcons. I only had them trading up from 26 to 23 to do so. And when you look at overall, I had 25 out of 32 players in my first-round mock draft that ended up going in round 1. So I've got a total of 5 picks that were exactly correct in terms of the player and the draft position and the team, which was Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, Josh Allen, Da'Ron Payne, Leighton Vander Esch. I had another 4 picks where it ended up being the correct team that took him. It was just in a different draft slot. Josh Allen, Kolton Miller, Josh Rosen, and Calvin Ridley. And then I had Roquan Smith going pick 8. So you could say I got 9 picks right in terms of the player going to the right team, including 5 of them in the correct slot. And when you throw in Roquan, I had another guy in the right draft slot. I feel like I did really well on the mock draft, and after months of getting knocked and getting shit on for what I was doing in on my mocks, I feel like a lot of you can now eat humble pie. While I wasn't the absolute best, when you look at a lot of the more well-known than me people, I guarantee my mock draft stacks up against a lot of them and probably exceeds them. And imagine this, if I had went the other way, which was very close to happening with Chubb 5 and Nelson 6, that means I would have had 11 players picked correctly in terms of the team, including 7 of them in the right slot. That probably would be like national elite level, like I'm not sure anybody would have been better than that. But there are still lessons to be learned from this mock draft, and I certainly will look at them and take away for them from next year. I still feel like it was pretty good. A couple other things I want to look at really quickly here with round 2. You know, I had some misses and so forth. Equanimous St. Brown was a really bad miss. Sam Hubbard was around early. But James Daniels went in early round 2, but I didn't anticipate Will Hernandez being there at that time, and nor did a lot of other people. I had Terrell Edmunds going high in round 2. I know there was late chatter about him being a first-round pick. I didn't think somebody would actually take him in round 1, but I didn't anticipate early round 2. I had Nick Chubb going very early round 2. I had the Bears addressing their interior line in early round 2. I mean, when you look at it, it wasn't that bad. I had Washington addressing running back in round 2. I nailed the Cardinals taking Christian Kirk. How ironic it is when you look back, I had Connor Williams going 49 and Dallas Goedert 50, and the way the draft played out, it was Dallas Goedert 49 and Connor Williams 50. I was only a couple of slots off for Uchenna Nwosu. I had the Ravens taking Orlando Brown. It just happened to be 1 round later. I had Carlton Davis going pretty close to where he got drafted. I had Mason Rudolph getting drafted by the Steelers. It just happened to be around early. I wasn't that far off in terms of the draft range of an Anthony Miller. So there were still some notable things there in round 2 that weren't that bad. Just when you start getting into round 2, that's where trades really start to come into play, and you can really get lost in the weeds. It's going to be really hard to anticipate how that's going to play out. But I'm proud of this mock draft. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's a pretty good performance, especially when you stack it up against a lot of others. I'm better than a lot of others, and I'll take that. Because come next year, when people try to clown on me or shit on me for my mock drafts, I can point to this year and say, hey, this gives me a little bit of credibility. And whether you like it or not, the fact is, it does. So I can just continue to be the most underrated sports talker here on YouTube. And that's what it is, damn it. You see all these other people getting all this massive praise about, oh, he was the best mock drafter. Where's the love for the Schleg Daddy, damn it? I deserve a little too, you know.